This video is inspired by a young man who left a comment in the comments after watching my videos. And he said something along the lines of, I don't have a father figure. So when I watch your videos, they actually inspire me. So continue making these videos. You know, when I make these videos, I don't actually have an idea who watches them and how much impact they have on people that watch this video. The reason why this message really touched my heart is because growing up, I think in the previous video, I mentioned that my relationship with my dad was very complicated, you know, but I'm not saying that to say that he was a bad man or that I'm making excuses for anything. No, it is what it is. So I don't remember really getting like guidance and advice. And the reason why I'm laughing is because there's a friend of mine who was talking about the subjects that he did at A level, and he did Shona, divinity, and business studies. And we laughed so much because if you look at those subjects, this is someone who has his parents were there paying school fees and, you know, doing the normal thing that parents do. But with this combination of subjects, Shona, divinity, and business studies, what are you expected to do, really? But anyway, I say this to say sometimes our parents, they are eager to do much for us, but they don't know. They're ignorant. So to the young guys, young men and women, there's a few things that you need to understand and that you need to know before you make these crazy mistakes in life. You see, I'm a parent, okay? And a lot of us that came to this country, we are jumping between different culture extremes, and we're trying to find the balance. And in looking for the balance, we are all usually in conflict. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? You know, do we go far back in our culture, or should we go deep into the culture of the West? What's the balance? And that's a struggle for a lot of parents. So in the end, people just do what they think is right, but there's no straight line. But what I want to talk about in this video is things that are going to empower you as a young man. So let's talk about the first thing. The first thing is debt. We live in a country which has so many things. Whatever you want is there. You want a new computer, is there. You want the latest clothes, is there. In fact, they change different fashion lines. I mean, it's just everywhere. You need to have discipline. Because if you're not careful and you're working, you're going to fall into the trap of buying all these fancy things, because we have emotions attached to them, especially if you are born in this country, or at least maybe you are a bit younger than me. The culture that we grew up with is we want to look good, we want to look nice, and pretty much that's how you're seen in society, that, hey, that guy is, you know, you get all your credit by ticking that box. So here in the West, it's very dangerous because debt is one of those things that will strangle you and give you so much stress and anxiety. So you have to understand that you can do without debt and then deal with it later. Now, I know a lot of people in the comments box will probably say there's good debt. All I'm saying is, if you are better off at managing your finances to live within your means and spend from what you earn, you are definitely mindset-wise on top of the pack, on top of, you know, pretty much a lot of people. Because even some adults my age, they're struggling with debt. Some people are regretting why they took debt. So if you're a young man, you need to stay away from debt. Just work hard and make sure that what you're working hard towards is your pure money. And you'll notice that the way you spend your own money, your hard-earned money, is different to how you spend money from a credit card. The second thing I want to talk about is goals. You cannot just live your life like a cow. You wake up, you eat grass, you go to the toilet, sleep. You can't do that. If you want to be successful in life, you got to have set goals. Short terms, medium goals, long-term goals. You got to have that. And your actions every day have to work towards what? Towards these goals. That is where you have purpose. Otherwise, if you are someone who just goes where the wind flows, again, it's a waste of time. You're going to realize later on that when it's too late, that, oh my goodness, I've wasted time, I've wasted so many resources, I could be there somewhere. And who knows, maybe your time now is going to be even more difficult. Things are changing today, even with AI. Some of these things that you think, I'll just get a job and I'll just continue and all of, I'm in technology myself, in the technology field. I used to pay so much money for people to do my email copywriting, copywriting for my websites. Sometimes to a degree, even wireframes for my web designs. But now I use AI. And I've even gone even further. I use AI agents which check my emails and respond to my emails. That's a job of someone who has a permanent job to just check your emails and make sure everything is okay. But of course, within my limits, I can do with that. So it's very, very important that you understand that time is a limit, and time is a very, very important resource. Let me move on to the next thing. And again, this is going to be controversial because a lot of people do, they're self-destructing, okay? They do things which destroy them and then justify them. And that is drinking. Drinking is a big problem. Because when you're drunk, the way you spend your money, the way you just become reckless. I don't drink anymore, but I've drank before, been there, done that. And it's not a good feeling. So it's a very, very, very bad habit. And once you start it, you have to have some serious control. Otherwise, it will drag you down. It will slow you from getting to your goals. So if you have goals and you start drinking and you start having people in your lives that are going to mess you up emotionally before you get your initial goals, it's going to be very, very difficult. And to some of you guys, if you've just finished uni and you feel like you want independence, you want to get out of the house and live by yourself, of course, unless maybe the situation is different, try by all means to save money on your rent by living with your parents. There's no need for you to rush out and become independent. No, you really need to what? Save as much money as you can, because rent is one of the biggest expenses. So that's one thing you have to take care of. Next, I'm going to talk about competition. Competition can be very, very unhealthy if it's competition to prove a point. A lot of Zimbabweans, you'll see this when you go to Zimbabwe. You'll see this even here. People are competing on things that don't enhance their lives. But there's also healthy competing. Like, for example, someone can be inspired by what I'm doing and they also want to do the same, and that is healthy competition. But the competition I'm talking about is you're competing to buy cars, you're competing to buy expensive clothes, expensive jewelry, crazy haircuts. It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. So this is very, very important. And this is where a lot of people spend money. And when they spend money in those areas, it makes you take a longer time to get to your goals. So it's very, very important you take care of that. I mean, looking back, I wish I could have done that, but of course we don't dwell on our past mistakes. We just keep on moving. So you got to have delayed gratification. You are going to be the odd one out if you decide to do that. You will have less friends. You're going to have very few people talking to you or hanging out with you, but it's okay, because you are the one who's going to be all set. I spoke to a young man in Australia. I think he's in his late 20s. When he moved over to Australia, he started saving so much money. He drove an old Toyota Corolla for many, many years. People were laughing at him. They were saying, why would you do this? Why would you do that? Right? Because he had goals. Do you know what he told me? He told me that he has 5 houses in the high density areas in Harare. 5 houses. Young guy, late 20s. Imagine. So I asked him, how? Why? And he told me he saved every single penny because he was very intentional in what he wanted to do. This brings me now to mindset. And I know I should have talked about mindset right in the beginning. You see, the way you look at the world and the way your mind needs to make decisions and give you that energy to do what you have to do and to go against the what majority of people are doing. You got to have that mindset which is very, very strong. You have to read self-development books. Self-development books. From where we come from, there's none of that. I started discovering so many people, Tony Robbins and all these other guys here in this country. Business. I started learning about business in this country. In Zimbabwe, yes, you go to business school, but it's not really as deep. Which brings me next to the next point. You see, you have to choose your friends wisely. Because if you hang around with stupid people, you become one of them. You become one of them. So you have to hang out with people who are aiming very high, because sometimes you aim low and hit. So you don't want to do that. So this is why you need to choose your friends wisely. It's very, 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 very important. Now, the next part I'm going to talk about is, and this is going to be very sensitive, but it doesn't apply to in every single case. When our parents were growing up, they had their own issues they were dealing with. And the issues they were dealing with made them react or do things to us that are not good. And I spoke about this in the other video. You'll find that a parent can say nasty things to you as a child. And right now, I have a very good friend of mine. He's even a brother. His name is James. And we talk about this. And when I look back, I realize that, oh my goodness, our parents, the way they were to us and how we coped with things has an effect on how we develop in life. I want to give you an example. Imagine a child who their parent tells them, hey, you're going to achieve nothing in life. You're useless. Udofo. Can you imagine what that does to a child who's young? It can break them to a point where they have learned helplessness in life. Google that, learned helplessness. You look around, you don't see anyone, succeeding. So you think it's normal. So there's no need to what? To aim high. Sometimes it can affect you emotionally, that the way you perform can be affected. And when you feel like that, you definitely need to get help. You definitely need to get help. There are also parents who came here to the diaspora and all they do is work. The mom, the dad, they're working crazy double shifts because they want to settle down or create something at least back home in Zimbabwe. So the pressure is on. The pressure is on to do that. So they do it sometimes to an extreme because they have their own pressures too. Maybe the family back home is saying, hey, what are you doing there? You've been there 10 years. You've been there 15 years. What have you done? So they're going through a lot of pressure. But they don't realize that it has to be balanced. And because of that pressure, you as a child, you're going to feel neglected. You don't look at your parents as your role models. And now you have a disconnect. And before you know it, you're derailed. So when you see that you're in that situation, try and get some personal development help, to frame your mind to have the positive mindset and make you go for your goals without any distractions. It's very, very important. But in saying that, the parents here who are working crazy hard and all of that, they don't know better because they think they're doing the right thing. Because our focus when we come here to the diaspora is work. It's work. And sometimes we get blinded. We don't see the small things that are close to us. We don't see it because it's just work. I want to give you an example of myself. When I set up my company, I used to sleep at the office. Sometimes I'll be a week away, 4 days away. And I worked so hard that I did not spend time with my children. But I realized it very early because that's when I thought, you know what? I don't even know what my children are doing. I don't even know, you know, I don't even watch movies with them. I don't even go out with them. I don't play sport with them. Where's the connection? So I started changing. And thank God, at least they have some memories, you know, because I managed to what? To fix it at a very, very early stage. But can you imagine someone who doesn't get that realization? What are they going to do? They just continue doing the same thing over and over again. And in doing that, of course, you know, when you work under pressure, your reactions, the way you communicate, sometimes that pressure can make you become very upset, and then that's going to be a bad, you know, communication with your parents, and then all of a sudden you have chaos, and then you start acting up. So these are the areas you have to be very, very careful and very, very understanding as well. And this is where, for you young guys, it's very important to sit down and support your parents. You need to open that dialogue. For me personally, it would be a perfect situation if, let's say, all my kids were into my business that I have right now, because there's continuation. But you'll find that a lot of parents, I'm not saying all of them, I said a lot. There's some disconnection. The dad has a farm in Zimbabwe, but the child is doing a course which is totally opposite. I'm not saying it's bad. Of course, follow your dreams, blah, 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 and all of that. But can you imagine if you were the brains now to add value to what your dad has started or what your mom has started? That will be massive. Because here, especially with a lot of young guys here, you have access to even more technology, because when we grew up, we never had computers. We had no computers, no internet. So you have access to a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, which can make your parents' investments even way much better. Finally, I want to talk about investments as a young man or a young woman. This is the time. Believe it or not. If you don't want to go deep into crazy investments, at least put some money aside for savings. Put some money aside, savings. Because there are opportunities that are going to come up where if you put your money into those opportunities, this will help you a lot. It will make your life later on in life even much, much better. Now, I want to give you a scenario. You know, we talk about mortgages here. Imagine at the age of, let's say, 20, you start putting money aside. Or you invest it in something which then generates money. You can easily buy a house cash in the next 20 years. Provided, obviously, you're doing things the right way. And to do the things the right way, don't listen to people that don't have success in that particular field. Now, I know it's going to sound like a contradiction here, because I've also seen some people in the comments saying, but Ruwa, your farm has failed. Why are you here preaching to us? You failed. But one thing they don't realize is failing is actually a very good thing. Because when you fail, you need to fail a lot. That's my mindset. But Zimbabweans don't understand this, because we were raised to work, to be workers, and that's it. The schooling system was against failing. The work environment, you fail, you get fired. But when you run your own business, those failures can teach you a lot and make you even more powerful. My first 2 companies were liquidated, failed. But guess what? The third one is thriving. But I don't talk about that a lot. You know why? Because I know if I start talking about my business, how it's performing, how things are, and you guys will start, Ruwa Organic is showing off here. And how would you feel if you're trying to get up on your feet and I'm telling you, hey, my life is all good? It won't make you feel good. So you know what I do? I talk about my shortcomings. I talk about my failures, so that tomorrow, if you want to go into that field, you are going to say, Ruwa started off with 1,000 chickens. He failed. Let me do it slower. I've saved you thousands and thousands of dollars. But Zimbabweans don't see it that way, because we're crazy like that. And you know what? That person commenting, he actually thinks he knows. He actually thinks he knows. And I know for a fact he's not an entrepreneur. Because if you have a mindset of an entrepreneur, failing is not an issue. In fact, in sales, if you follow Brian Tracy, he actually, in his part of his training, he sends people to knock on the doors, sales, and do that 100 times, sometimes even more. Why? Because they have to get used to rejection. Now, a lot of Zimbabweans who are not entrepreneurs, when they fail once, they get devastated, they get depressed. This thing doesn't work. You don't want to be taking advice from people like that. Okay, take advice from people who are doers, not just talkers. A lot of Zimbabweans talk too much, but it's zero substance. So you want to make sure you're taking knowledge from people who are qualified, from people who are actually doing something. That's where people open up. But generally speaking, people know everything. This is where the problem is. You'll be very surprised. Even this video that I'm doing right now, you find people saying there's nothing wrong with drinking. Did I say there's nothing wrong with drinking? No, I'm saying you're better off if you're not drinking, because your judgment is not impaired and it saves you money. But people are very good at justifying their behaviors, and that's how we are. So these are the sort of things you need to pay attention to, okay? And never get involved in things. In fact, this is a big one, okay? This is a big one. I forgot to mention this. Don't stress about things that you can't change. I'll say it again. Don't stress about things you can't change. That's why I don't watch the news. You know why? Because I'm looking at situations which I know are bad and things are going crazy in the world. Can I do anything about it? No. But subconsciously, it will make you depressed. Imagine you're feeding your brain with that every day. Sometimes you just wake up tired because your brain is just working on things you can't even process. And you need that energy for you to be able to what? To work towards your goals. So energy is very, very important. So that is why every morning I listen to something motivational. Before I go to sleep, I listen to something motivational. Why? Because I want to stay in that level of what? Of positive energy. Yes, sometimes I get days where I'm tired and I can't be bothered, but that's what I try and do. I try to stay positive. I try to look and watch things that are giving me positivity. And that is very, very important. So stay away from politics, especially Zimbabwean politics. People talk too much. You get drained. You get so tired. And then what? Right now, we have people that were going so crazy about the opposition party. Where are they right now? Wasted energy. So if you can't change anything, don't stress with it. Leave it. Focus on your goals, because that's what matters. If you focus on things you can't change, you're draining yourself from energy. Draining yourself from energy. So these are the main things that I can think of, that I know that can definitely help you. And these are things that you can expand on and help you in the future. And at the end of the day, we can all lie to each other. We want financial freedom. That's what we want. You don't have to have a degree if it doesn't make sense. But of course, you have to sit down and have career guidance and all of that. But don't just do a degree because everybody else is doing it. Bad idea. In fact, some of these degrees are useless anyway. But we have a cultural thing where if you have a degree, well, you're respected in society. It's something. Nowadays, a degree is not even anything, special. You go into 60, 80,000 debt. For what? So you have to be very careful. Again, when you choose these degrees, you have to make sure it's intentional, not just an emotional decisions where you just feel like you just want to have a degree. So let's make this video something very beneficial for some of you who have tips and ideas that I haven't mentioned. Please leave them in the comments box below. So when young guys and girls come and they want to read this, they can always watch the video and also read the comments. So go ahead if you have something positive to add into the comments box, and yeah, I think that's all I have to say now. And depending on how this video performs, I may even do a few of these videos as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.